Hare Krishna, everyone. This is Asraya Madhava, and today we will discuss chapter 10 of Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, written by Srila Prabhupada. And the chapter 10 is about Lord Krishna's opulences, or as the chapter aptly says, the opulences of the Absolute. And because there's no difference between Lord Krishna or absolute truth, because Lord Krishna himself as in his Bhagavan form, his expansion as Paramatma in every living entity's heart, and his Brahman expansion, which is his existence aspect or Sat aspect, completely describes the absolute truth. So that's what we are going to read from Bhagavad Gita. Before I do that, I'm going to go and recite the Mangalacharan prayers for the auspiciousness of this class. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vande Aham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute. तप्त कांचना गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ramo 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 Hare Hare. Now we'll go to chapter 10. Now, before we recite the chapter 10, let us get some background about why this conversation in chapter 10 about the opulences of the Absolute or opulences of the Lord Sri Krishna. So I'm going to quickly move about or navigate from chapter 1 to chapter 8, spend some time on chapter 9, and then move to chapter 10. So chapter 1, it is Arjuna's dilemma, whether he should fight or not fight, because if he fights, the society will go into chaos. He sees that he might commit some sins because of killing his relatives, killing his grandfather, killing his guru. And on the other hand, he understands, not spoken in the chapter 1, but it's understood that he was a Kshatriya, so he's supposed to fight on religious principles. That's his duty. And therefore, he is in dilemma, what he should do. So he asks Lord Krishna, what I should do. Lord Krishna takes him to a 30,000 feet view of difference between soul and body. Soul never dies, never changes. Body changes, body dies. And therefore, soul should tolerate, uh, the sufferings that is happening, which is actually happening on the body. And knowing that soul is the eternal, so one should engage in that eternal duty, which is, he talks about the Lord Krishna in the same second chapter as Vyavasayamika Buddhi, okay, the business of soul, which is one pointed as opposed to the business of body, which is many branched, as said in Vedas. Then he goes on to describe the Buddhi Yoga in a way that Arjun interprets that as something to go and do, meditate, not like leading an active life, but lead a passive life and focus on the Supreme. And so he asks in the beginning of third chapter, why should I fight? Because looks like the intelligence is better than, engaged in this ghastly warfare. Lord Krishna then says that what I told you actually are two different paths, the Sankhya, right, which is the distinction between soul and the body, and Buddhi Yoga, which is essentially application of knowledge in the active life, or you can call it Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. And then he goes on describing, how one should engage oneself in a life, in an active life, and set an example. Even though someone is realized, still he should work to set an example to the others, right? And then while Lord Krishna is describing this, he does say that one should not pick up a duty which is not compatible to his guna and karma, okay? And therefore, the karma that has been assigned to him. He was indirectly telling to Arjuna, you are a Kshatriya, therefore you should fight on religious principles. Don't take the role of a sannyasa or, brahmana. Then Arjuna asks, what is that thing which impels a person to helplessly act in a path which is not supposed to, right, or commit sinful acts? Lord Krishna says that is because of lust. Okay? It is the lust which forces one, because it is present in the intelligence, mind, and senses, and thus impels a person to engage in sinful activities. But then Lord Krishna gives a solution that spiritual intelligence or spiritual knowledge can be used to extricate oneself or relieve oneself from the problem of lust. And he does talk about that in the fourth chapter, the transcendental knowledge, right? It says that how when you glorify Lord, when you hear about his pastimes, then this disease called lust goes away. And then towards the end of the fourth chapter, he does talk about karma sannyasat karmana. He makes a 441, right? Which the verse can mean both, to relieve the work, to leave the work and focus on the Supreme, because work can cause bondage. It can also mean that leave the results of the work, which actually causes bondage. And so Arjuna gets confused, which one is it? And so he asks in the beginning of fifth chapter, action in Krishna consciousness. And then Lord Krishna says, it is actually what I mean is both are good, but then, when you work in devotion, that means when you work to ultimately offer the results to Krishna or to the Lord, that is better, because you have to work, you have to keep yourself, give yourself food, so that keep the body and soul together. So therefore, and you don't have to depend on anyone as a result, go on begging to people. So it is good to, work in devotion. So he keeps on saying that, and towards the end, he gives hint about the Dhyana Yoga, which is the beginning of the sixth chapter, where how to meditate on the self and then on the Supreme Lord who is present in Paramatma within, right? And he talks about the Dhyana Yoga, and towards the end of Dhyana Yoga, he says that, whoever absorbs himself completely in Krishna, okay, he is the topmost yogi. That's what Lord Krishna says. And then in the 7th chapter, knowledge of the absolute, Lord Krishna then lists that what is that absolute knowledge a yogi gets who absorbs himself in the image or in the form of Lord Krishna. He talks about his various energies, right? That is the knowledge he gets, that there is a supreme, that supreme is the Lord Krishna, and he has the Bahiranga Shakti, the material energy, the separated energies, right? Which is all the 5 gross elements and the mind, intelligence, ego. And there is a Jiva energy or Jiva Bhuta, right? The living energy. That is the Tatastha Shakti, which has a option to get covered by Maya and struggle there with their senses, or to relieve himself and focus on Krishna, right? And be part of his, engage in the activities of his internal potency. He keeps on describing that. The 6th chapter, towards the end of the 6th chapter, he then talks about, I think it is the 6th chapter, no, 7th. Yeah, I think it is the 6th chapter. Towards the end of the 6th chapter, he, we are talking about 7th chapter now. So towards the end of the 7th chapter, he does talk about that he is the supreme lord of, the Brahman, the supreme lord of demigod, supreme lord of all the material nature, and therefore, one should absorb himself, okay, with Lord Krishna to get out of this world. So all those things he describes there then becomes the foundation for the 8th chapter, where Arjuna asks, what is Brahman, what is living entity, what is Adi Yagya, and all that. And then the Lord Krishna keeps on describing that towards the 8th chapter. And then that is 8th chapter is therefore the attaining the supreme. And the 9th chapter is the confidential knowledge. Now, the confidential knowledge, what Lord Krishna explains, is how he is present everywhere as an avyakta, impersonal form, right? And then he also does explain that he is responsible for the creation and annihilation of the universe, and he acts through his material energy, okay, the Daivi Shakti. He acts through the Daivi Shakti in making all that happen in the universe. And he does talk about the demigods, how they are related to him. In fact, when you worship demigods, you're actually you're worshiping Lord Krishna, but indirectly, right? And towards the end, and that is what we're going to read that verse, okay, towards the end of the 9th chapter, in that confidential knowledge, he says, that is 934, it's Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam evasheshi yuktvavam atmanam matparayana. Right? He says this. He says, engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. Right? So, and we are going to focus on certain things here, certain phrases, because that will be the foundation of this 10th chapter. He's saying, engage your mind always in thinking of me, right? Always. He also says, become completely absorbed in me. So in the 10th chapter, one of the words, why Arjuna asked that question, and then about, describing the opulences of the Lord, and then Lord described the opulences, and why he concludes that 10th chapter saying that, he pervades everything. Okay. So we'll try to understand that in the 10th chapter, why that conversation happens, but the foundation of that conversation is these two. Okay. Always in thinking of me and completely absorbed in me. Right. So let's go and start reading the 10th chapter. The opulence of the absolute. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Bhuya eva mahabaho srinume paramam vacha yatte aham priyamanaya vakshayami hita kamaya. This says the Supreme Personality of Godhead says, listen again, O mighty Arjuna, because you are my dear friend. For your benefit, I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge that is better than what I have already explained. Right? So he had explained in the previous chapter, he explained about his all pervasiveness. He explained how he's engaged in controlling the complete universe. He also explained how demigods, when you worship demigods, you're actually worshiping Krishna, right? And then he also explains that when you worship Krishna, which is not very difficult, you have to give just a leaf, water, or whatever, but with love, right? Palatable things which are palatable to Krishna, offer them with love, then he is easily approachable, right? Now the question is so that knowledge he is giving, but he's saying now I'm going to give you knowledge better than that, right? Okay, so what is the knowledge Lord is going to give better than that? Okay, so a couple of things here. He's saying why he's telling this to Arjuna, because Arjuna is very dear to him. That means what? He has a position of being a devotee in the relationship of friendship, right? In relation of friendship. Therefore, he can understand what Lord is saying. Okay, there are certain things which, so you might have heard about this in Mahabharata. Lord had conversations with even Duryodhana, even Karna, but he did not preach all these things to them, because the reason was they were not devotees. They would not understand this. They will get more and more envious. More Lord Krishna says about, imagine these verses being told by, Lord Krishna to Duryodhana or Karna, they would have become envious of them, right? So only, a devotee can keep his mind open, even though Lord is describing his opulence, his superiority, his supremacy, right? That is why he's dear to Lord. So Lord, you'll be able to understand. Nami vidu suragana prabhavam nama na maharshaya aham adi hi devanam maharshinam cha sarvasha. Neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences. For in every respect, I am the source of the demigods and sages. Okay. Whatever he described in the 9th chapter, he is saying that aspect in truth, okay, not theoretical, in truth, only he knows. Because the sages, they do not know his origin or opulences. You cannot get this knowledge from anywhere else. That is another reason why this is a confidential knowledge. Because he is the source of the demigods or sages and sages. Right? Yo mamajam anadim cha veti loka maheshwaram asham mudha samarteshu sarva pape pramuchate. He who knows me as the unborn, as the beginningless, as the supreme Lord of all the worlds, he only, undiluted among men, is freed from all sins. Right? So, once a person knows that, the Lord Krishna is not born like other living entities. He is unborn. His form is unborn. He is always there in that same transcendental form. Right? There is no beginning. We all have date of birth. Now, Lord Krishna also he came to this world, right? But how he came? He did not come like a normal person like us. He came in his four-hand form, right? And then upon the request of his devotee parents, he transformed himself into a baby, right? But he was ready to come in that form itself, right? So his transcendental form. But once someone knows that, and once someone knows that he's supreme Lord of all the worlds, he becomes freed from all sins. Why? The reason is because he is supreme Lord of everything, so he is controlling everything. So that means what we describe as sin, those acts, right? Those are also ultimately controlled by the Lord. Although it depends on our wish. So our sin actually starts with our wish, but what happens is controlled by the Lord. Okay. So then he becomes freed from all the sins. He becomes very humble. He becomes very humble. See, that humility then starts. What he thought that he could control, he actually cannot control. Because his Maya is so strong that you cannot overcome that Maya, which you falsely thought that you could control, you can overcome. Only option is you take shelter of Lord Krishna, then Maya leaves you. Okay. So that vision you can get only when you understand Lord Krishna is Supreme Lord of all the worlds, that he is controlling everything. That is what he described. If you analyze a little bit what he described in the 7th chapter, knowledge of the absolute, that is everything, basically. Body, intelligence, ego, 5 gross elements. What else is there in this world? Everything that you see and everything that, every change that happen by humanity or by living entity is from their intelligence and mind. So indirectly or directly, everything is happening using Lord's energies, separated energies, and the presence of the soul, of course, the Jiva's wish. So he is controlling everything, right? Buddhir jnanam asammoha shama satyam dama sama sukham dukham bhavo abhavo bhayam cha bhayam evacha ahimsa samata tushti tapodanam yasho yasha bhavanti bhava bhutanam matta eva prithagvida. What Lord Krishna is saying here: intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness, all good so far, all the good qualities, distress, even distress, not only happiness, even distress, birth, even death, even fear, also fearlessness, non-violence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame, but even infamy, becoming infamous. Okay, all these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone. Right? So these qualities come from him. That is what we are discussing in the previous verse. Right? All that we attribute, that we are controlling, we have it, actually come from, those are borrowed. They come from Lord Krishna. Okay. Maharshaya Shaptapurve Chatvaro Manavastatha Madhava Manasa Jata Yesham Loka Ima Praja. The 7 great sages, and before them the 4 other great sages, and the Manus, progenitors of mankind, come from me, born from my mind, and all the living beings populating the various planets descend from them. So all the living entities, big, demigods and all those, whatever you are saying, controlling, directly, indirectly, their source, I am their source. And he's explaining how. He's explaining how he's the source, right? So these Manus, right? 11 Manus, then 4 sages, 7, so 11, Manu is, I think, 14, right? In a Kalpa, there are 14 Manus, right? Kalpa of a Brahma. So 14 plus 11, 25 sages who are actually responsible for populating various planets in the universe. They all come from Lord Krishna's mind. And ultimately, from Lord Krishna's mind means like when his expansion as the Karanodakshai Vishnu, right? Mahavishnu in the ocean of causes. And then from there to Garbhodakshai Vishnu, his mind, and then from Brahma's body, they come out, right? All these sages. Right? You can read about them in the Bhagavatam. In detail, they've explained like how this is happening in Srimad Bhagavatam. Etam vibhutim yogam cha mama yo veti tattvata so vikalpena yogena yujyate natra samshaya veti tattvata. Right? Knows factually. Right? The facts. Okay, not just theoretical knowledge. Through facts, someone knows. What they know? One who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mind engages in unallowed devotional service. Of this, there is no doubt. So once someone doesn't have any doubt, but how, at what stage you won't have any doubt? When you know that factually, when you know something factually. That is what this whole 6th chapter, 7th chapter is all about. That they start knowing that 6th chapter is that process, Dhyan Yoga, and the 7th chapter, they get that knowledge. Okay. Once you know that factually, then you don't have any doubt and you engage in unalloyed devotional service. Means you don't have a craving for any knowledge or mental speculation. You don't have any craving for any material desires. Right? Why? Because you know that this person, Lord Krishna, is everything. He is the source of everything, including what is happening in my life. Right? And it is probably happening because I deserve it. So why change it? He knows everything. He is the best. Okay, he is all, even the intelligence comes from him. So he knows what is right for me. That is why it is happening in my life. Instead of that, why not, whatever my life is, I accept it and then, engage. And that is what his Lord Krishna is going to discuss from the verse 8. And once you know this fact, he is everything. He is the most intelligent. Therefore, whatever is happening in your life is the best. Once you have that knowledge, right, then you are not in doubt anymore. Then you engage in unallowed devotional service. And he is going to describe that. What is that unallowed devotional service? Okay, from next verse. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matah sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam bhuda bhava samanvita. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Okay, so we are in which world? We are in material world. We can know that. How? Because any happiness we have in our life slips away from our hand. Right? That is the living proof that we are in a material world. Okay, that is the foundation, the fundamental principle of material world. Asaswatam dukhalayam. Okay, asaswatam. Dukhalayam is because it is asaswatam. Nothing is permanent. And there are also spiritual worlds. Why? Why we accept that? Because Lord Krishna, who has everything, does not have any reason to lie. Because he controls everything. He is everything. Why he should? A person lies when he thinks he will gain something by it. He doesn't have to gain anything. Why he should lie? And he says that there is a spiritual world where he lives. So that means we accept there is a spiritual world. Simple. Right? He doesn't have any incentive to lie. Right? And he says, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. Sort of, emphasizing that further. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Everything includes your current state of life, your previous life, whatever life you will get, right? Everything. It is, when he says everything, we should not think in terms of objects. And this is one of the reasons why Lord Krishna there talks about abstract concepts also, the qualities, which are abstract concepts, fame, infamy. It's not just the objects as we see, the earth, sun, moon, star, planets, even the abstract things comes from him, which includes the condition of our life. Now, was there, will be there, everything comes from him, right? So the wise who know this engage in my devotional service, Lord Krishna's devotional service, and worship him with all their hearts, not mechanically, all their hearts. Because now, once they know this, right, that he is the source of everything, he controls everything, he knows the best, then where else the heart could be, right? Once they know that factually, right? Where else the heart could be? And therefore they engage with their heart in devotional service. Right? So through this devotional service, what they are doing, they are building a relationship with the Lord. Like in the material world, life after life, before they understood factually that he is everything, before that they kept on building relationship with all kinds of people who did not last, all kinds of concepts which did not last, or abstract things which did not last, right? And it did not serve them. When they understood factually that he is the Supreme Lord, everything is coming from him, that means he must be eternal. He's unborn. He's just saying that he's unborn, beginningless. So let us build relationship with someone, who is beginningless, unborn, eternal. So why? Because that way our relationship will also be eternal and we will not get hurt. Okay. So that is the reason. So we are building that relationship, sambandha. Matchitta madgata prana bodhayanta parashparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Here Lord Krishna is describing how do they do that. Okay. Once they understand that we have to build this relationship, how do they, because relationship is not a static thing. Okay, you have a husband and wife, it's not just husband, wife, that's it, right? They exchange services, right? That is how the relationship is established. When they have children, then the child becomes the via media of exchanging service, right? So that is how a relationship survives the test of time, right? There has to be exchange of service, and that is what kind of service these people do. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, right? And they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me, right? So they do multiple things. They are fully devoted to the service of Krishna, right? They serve him. And for that, of course, they have to go out, they have to earn something, right? So that's how they devote themselves. They serve Krishna. They, get dresses for him. They get, ingredients so that they can prepare nice bhoga, right? So they serve. And whenever they get some time, they discuss about Krishna and his pastimes. Okay, whenever, right? So all the time, 24/7, they're engaged in these activities. And therefore, their thoughts are always dwell in Lord Krishna, because Lord Krishna likes, right? Who doesn't like to get praised and hear glory? So Lord Krishna is also a person, he likes, right? Tesam satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Okay. Now this verse and next verse actually talks about the prayojan. Why these devotees are doing it? What are they getting? Okay, so to those who constantly devoted to serving with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. This understanding is described here as Buddhi Yoga. The same Buddhi Yoga Lord Krishna discusses in second chapter. So this is that Buddhi Yoga they're talking about. With this Buddhi Yoga, you can come to Lord Krishna. not 30 crore demigods, right? Or sorry, 33 crore demigods or 330 million demigods, right? One single path, single pointed devotion. That's what Lord Krishna talks about in the second chapter in Buddhi Yoga. Same thing he's saying here, but they get that Buddhi Yoga. How? Okay, constantly devoted to serving me with love. Okay, that is how then, the Lord Krishna gives them that understanding, that Buddhi Yoga, by which they can come to. And how he describes further in the next verse. So this is the prayojan. This is why. Prayojan means why you should do this. This is why. And the 11th verse is describing Tesham evanukampartham aham agyana jamtama nashyami atmabhavastho jnanadipena bhashvata. To show them special mercy. Okay. So Lord Krishna himself, or through his various expansions, right, Vishnu expansions, he is showing mercy all the time. Think of it this way. This material world is like a prison. Okay. Why is it prison? Because we are not happy in the spiritual world. Okay. We were, why the center is always Krishna? Why not me? That kind of, emotions or, feeling comes in us. And when that feeling comes repeatedly, then Lord Krishna says, okay, so you want to be in a world where I am not there. So I will create a reflection of this world, okay, where I will keep myself away from that world, okay, but I will be there as time factor, invisible, okay. So you be in that world. That's material world. It's a reflection of the spiritual world. But Lord Krishna, the most beautiful thing about that world, which is in spiritual world itself, is missing and is replaced by the cruel hands of time or death, Kal. Kal in Sanskrit sometimes represents death, also represents time. So, but he is merciful. He is creating the same world here in the material world. Okay, go and enjoy. He is merciful. He is not saying that, okay, you don't want this world, just go remain suspended somewhere. Okay, he doesn't do that. He is showing special mercy. Not only that, he comes here time to time in the material world to teach us how to go back to him, because he sees that we are not happy, right? So he is merciful always, but to these devotees is special mercy. What is the special mercy? Dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So the ignorance, whatever is there in the heart, that gets destroyed, because that knowledge, okay, that shining lamp of knowledge is a figurative way of saying that knowledge he gives them, by which they are able to see everything very clearly. He's able to see with Krishna, with Vishnu, all these demigods, right? And then, this material world, spiritual world, everything becomes crystal clear to them. Just like this Zoom screen is crystal clear to me. I can see it, right? I can see there's a water bottle there. It's crystal clear. Like that, it becomes crystal clear to them, okay, through that knowledge. Then Arjuna is asking, Arjuna uvacha param brahma param dhama pavitram paramam bhavan purusham shashvatam divyam adidevam ajam vibhum ahustvam rishaya sarve devarshir naradas tatha ashito devalo vyasa swayam chaiva bravishime. Then Arjuna is asking, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. Just now what we're discussing in the beginning of the class. Absolute truth is Bhagavan, Paramatma, and Brahman. You are that eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest. And he kind of summarizes everything which Lord Krishna said about himself. And he is also saying that all the great sages such as Narada, Sita Devala Vyas confirm this truth about you. So indirectly, to whoever is going to read this or listen to this in future, he's telling, hey, I'm not saying this because I'm Lord Krishna's friend. Okay, I'm saying this because there are a lot of other great sages who also do not have any intention to lie, because they left home, everything, live in forests. Narada is roaming all the time, he doesn't have any home. What interest they have in gaining anything? These are the people who is declaring the same thing about Lord Krishna. And now you yourself are declaring it to me. That is why it is truth. Okay. So all the authorities, the great sages, they are also saying the same thing about it. Okay. Sarvam etat ritam manye yanmam vadashi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur devan danava. And he further says, "O Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the demigods nor the demons, O Lord, can understand your personality," which Lord Krishna said before. They don't, because Lord Krishna is the source of them, demigods and demons, right? How? So the Diti, the Adityas and the Daityas, okay, Daityas were born from Diti and Adityas were born from Aditi, right? And the sage from whom they were born, they came from the mind of Lord Krishna, indirectly, actually, from the mind of Garbhodaksha. Vishnu is an expansion, indirect expansion of Krishna, right? So all these demons and demigods, they came from Lord Krishna. So how can they understand Lord Krishna's personality? Because you have to understand someone's personality. How do you understand a person's personality? By the activities he has carried out. You go through his activities, the biography is full of his activities. And from that you understand a person's personality. So to understand personality of the Lord, you have to know all his activities. You cannot, because he came, he was unborn. Actually, not he came, actually he was unborn. He was always there, but you had birth, and that indirectly he is the source of your birth, source of the demigods and demons. That is why they cannot understand his personality. Swayam evat manatmanam vetatvam purushottama bhuta bhavana bhutesha deva deva jagatpate. Indeed, you alone know yourself by your internal potency, O Supreme Person, origin of all, Lord of all beings, God of gods, Lord of the universe. Right? So here in sequence, he is sort of explaining how he is everything. Okay. Towards the end in purport, Srila Prabhupada is nicely saying this. Okay. Sometimes the impersonalists accept Krishna as Bhagavan or they accept his authority. Yet many liberated persons cannot understand Krishna as Purushottam, the Supreme Person. Therefore, Arjuna addresses him as Purushottam. Yet, one still may not understand that Krishna is the father of all living entities. Therefore, Arjuna addresses him as Bhuta Bhavana. Okay, is the source of all the Bhutas. Means Bhuta means living entities. And if one comes to know him as father of all the living entities, still one may not know him as the supreme controller. Therefore, he is addressed as Bhutesha, Bhuta Isha. Isha means controller of the living entities. And even if one knows Krishna as the supreme controller of living entities, still one may not know that he is the origin of all the demigods. Therefore, he is addressed herein as Devadev, the worshipful God of all demigods. And even if one knows him as the worshipful God of all demigods, one may not know that he is the supreme proprietor of everything. Therefore, he is addressed as Jagatpati. Thus, the truth about Krishna is established in this verse by the realization of Arjuna. And we should follow in the footsteps of Arjuna to understand Krishna as he is. Okay. So this is the sequence, basically. That is why he is saying all this in sequence, Arjuna. Right? Vaktumarhasi aseshena divya hi atma vibhutaya yabhir vibhuti bhir lokam imam stvam vyapya tishtashi. Please tell me in detail of your divine opulences by which you pervade all these worlds. Okay. After he is telling his realization, he is then for the benefit of common people who may not accept, who base their understanding on the observations of the material world, for them described your divine opulences. There is another reason why Arjun is saying this, because Arjun is saying, now, when the battle will start, I may not get any time to do all those activities which you described in the verse 8 to verse 10, or verse 11, sorry, verse 8 to verse 11. So how do I remember you? Right? How do I remember you? How do I absorb, your presence all the time? Right? That is another reason. Katham vidyam aham yogim stvam sada parichintayan keshu keshu cha bhaveshu chintyosi bhagavan maya. O Krishna, O Supreme Mystic, how shall I constantly think of you? Now, always in thinking of me is the 9th chapter 34th last verse. This is the purpose why why Arjun is asking Lord Krishna that how I can think always of you, because this is the ultimate goal of life, how to think Krishna all the time, so that when we leave this world, we will be thinking, because we have to live at that time. When you're leaving the world, you are not in control of your body and mind. So thinking of Krishna has to become part of your consciousness. Right? How to do that? So you have to always be conscious, and that is what Arjun is asking Lord Krishna. How do I constantly think of you? How shall I know you? In what various forms are you to be remembered, O Supreme Personality of Godhead? So this is a very pertinent question, because for us also, we are householders day to day, we engage in all kinds of activities, right? So how to remember Lord Krishna all the time? Vistarenatmano yogam vibhutim cha janardana bhuya kathaya triptirhi srinvato nasti nemritam. O Janardan, again please describe in detail the mystic power of your opulences. I am never satiated in hearing about you, for the more I hear, the more I want to taste the nectar of your words. Now there are two things here. Even though Lord Krishna is going to tell, okay, of his various opulences, not everything, but the prominent ones, but still one has to have this taste to hear that again and again. That is also important. So one should be eager. Lord Krishna can say many things, right? But you should have the taste to hear those words. That's also very important. And the taste develops when you hear it again and again in presence, in association of devotees. When you do that, the taste will automatically develop. Right? Because devotees are not mechanical. Because when you discuss this, one devotee will discuss something described in Bhagavatam, right? Like this opulences, all this description of opulences to Arjuna, you will find that also in Bhagavatam. Same thing, to Uddhava. This is the 16th chapter of 11th canto. He is describing the same thing, what we are going to read now. Okay. So one devotee will describe that, another devotee will may focus on just one aspect, maybe the Om, how Om is Krishna, or Pranava, right? The Om, Pranava mantra, how that is Krishna, right? Or someone may, discuss about, maybe how he is Aditya, right? Among the Adityas, how he is Vishnu, right? So it is dynamic, and that brings that taste, in that discussion. So that is also important. But let us now hear what Lord Krishna is describing. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Hantate Kathayishyami Divyahi Atmabhibhutaya Pradhanyatah Kuru Srestha Nasti Anto Vistarashyame. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, yes, I will tell you of my splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent to Arjuna, for my opulence is limitless. Right? Lord Krishna's opulence is limitless. And this you can get a sense of this when you read Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Charitamrita, he has described that how his opulence is limitless. Okay. So therefore he's saying, I will discuss the prominent ones. Okay. Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarva Bhutashaya Sthita Aham Adischa Madhyam Cha Bhutanam Anta Evacha. So, I am the super soul of Arjun, seated in the hearts of all living entities. Arjun has been described as Gudakesha, one who has conquered sleep. Right? He is the beginning, middle, and the end of all beings. Right? He is present. Okay? The beginning, and he will describe that, how he is present in the beginning, right? The generating principle. Then end of all beings also he will describe as death, how he is, right? So he is present everywhere, and he is present in every living entity's heart as super soul, as Paramatma. Right? And this is a very interesting statement. Okay. When you read the Opulences, you may ask a question that why Airavata only? Why not other elephants? Because as per this statement, he is there in the heart of other elephants also. Why then Airavata? Okay. In Airavata, his opulences are completely manifested there because of the purity of that particular living entity. In others, they are hidden. Okay. So let's go through all the opulences, and towards the end, Lord Krishna is making that statement that he is present everywhere. Okay. Not just in the prominent ones. In the prominent ones, his opulences are visible. Adityanam aham Vishnu Jyotisam Raviram Shuman Marichir Marutam Ashmi Nakshatranam aham Shashi. Of the Adityas, I am Vishnu. Of lights, I am the radiant sun. Of the Maruts, I am Marichi. And among the stars, I am the moon. Vedanam Samavedoshmi Devanam Ashmi Vashava Indriyanam Manasha Chashmi Bhutanam Ashmi Chetana. So of the Vedas, I am the Samved. Right? So there are 4 Vedas. Okay. But at the time Bhagavad Gita was written, somehow they mentioned 3 Vedas. Okay. Rig, Yajur, and Sam. Atharvaveda is not mentioned. But Samveda is the Ved where, beautiful, it is describing the poetic meters are there. Okay. You can sing them basically. Right? So that is the reason why the Samveda is the best. Right? Of the demigods, I'm Indra. Of course, he's the king of the heaven. Right? So he represents Indra. Of the senses, I am the mind. Right? Mind is the place which sense not only what signals are coming from external world, but it also senses our past experiences or tendencies. Right? Of the senses, I am the mind. That's why mind is also sometimes called sixth sense. And in living beings, I am the living force, Chetana, consciousness, right? What is the value of a living being which does not move? Right? Dead living being, no value. Right? That consciousness, that Chetana makes the living being alive, living, or you can call living, right? And that is, he says, that's Krishna, right? It's because of his presence, right? That super soul, right? That living being is alive. Rudranam Shankarashchashmi Vitesho Yaksha Rakshasham Vasunam Pavakaschashmi Meru Shikharinamaham. Of the Rudras, right? All the Rudras, how many? There are 11 of them. You can read in Bhagavatam, right? I am Lord Shiva, right? Of the Yakshas and Rakshasas, I am the Lord of Wealth, Kuvera. Of the Vashus, I am fire or Agni. And of mountains, I am Meru, right? Purodhasham cha mukhyam mam vidhi partha brihaspatim shenani nam aham skanda sarasamashmi shagara. Of priests, O Arjun, know me to be the chief Brihaspati. Right? He is the so there is one priest, chief priest, okay, in the heaven, and like in for the demigods, and then for the demons. For the demons, the priest is Ushana, Sukrachari, and for the demigods, the priest is Brihaspati. So of all the priests, and there are many other priests, okay, but then of all the priests, Brihaspati is the best, and that is Krishna. Of all the generals, okay, who fight, he is Kartikeya, also known as Skanda, right? And of bodies of water, I am the ocean, very peaceful, right? All the rivers ultimately flow into them, right? So he represents ocean. Mahashinam Bhriguraham Giram Ashmi Ekam Aksharam Yajnanam Japa Yagyoshmi Sthavaranam Himalaya. He's saying, of the great sages, I am Bhrigu. So remember that all the sages, Lord Krishna was saying that they're born from their mind. For all those sages, Bhrigu is the best, and he represents Bhrigu. Of vibrations, I am the transcendental Om. Right? Om is the best, because Om is what Mahavishnu chants to create the creation. Right? All the millions and trillions of universes come out of his pores. Right? That is the transcendental Om. That is why every universe has this sound of the Brahman. What is Brahman? Brahman is manifested, okay, as the Brahma Jyoti, that's the light, but then there also Brahmana, the sound, which is the Om, right? So that Om represents, that's why the Krishna. Of sacrifices, I am the chanting of the holy names or japa, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the Yuga Dharma of this age. That is the best sacrifice, okay, right? Because the most difficult thing to sacrifice for a person, if you ask him to sacrifice his attention, he can sacrifice his wealth, he can sacrifice his knowledge, but he cannot, if you ask him to sacrifice his attention, that is the last thing he will do. Because attention of a person is the most precious thing he has, right? And when you're chanting the holy name or japa, that is what you are asking that person to do. You sacrifice your attention from this external material world to these holy names. That is why it is the best form of sacrifice. And of immovable things, I am the Himalayas. Now, why not Meru? Meru is a great mountain, but Meru sometimes can move, but Himalayas is just atal. Atal means it cannot be moved. Okay, that is Himalayas. So that is why of the immovable things, Himalayas. Ashwatha Sharva Vrikshanam Devarshinam Cha Narada Gandharvanam Chitraratha Siddhanam Kapilo Muni. So, of all trees, I am the banyan tree. And of the sages among the demigods, I am Narad. Okay. So, there are a lot of sages like Parvata Muni, Narad Muni, and there are other sages also among the demigods. But he is he represents Narad Muni. Of the Gandharvas, I am Chitraratha. And among perfected beings, I am the sage Kapila. Okay. This Kapila is actually the son of Devahuti. So one should, if you hear someone, the talking the name of atheistic Kapila, you should clarify them. Here in purports, Srila Prabhupada is writing, amongst the perfect living entities, Kapila, the son of Devahuti, is a representative of Krishna. He is considered an incarnation of Krishna, and his philosophy is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? Later on, another Kapila became famous, but his philosophy was atheistic. Thus, there is a gulf of difference between them. So, this Kapila is the Kapil Dev, right? Who is an incarnation of Krishna, who actually taught devotional service to Devahuti through the process of meditation. That's what he taught. So, but he taught actually devotional service. And that is the Kapila we are talking about. Uchay Sravasam Ashwanam Vidhimam Amrito Bhavam Airavatam Gajendranam Naranam Cha Naradhipam. Of horses, know me to be Uchay Srava, right? Produced during the churning of the ocean for nectar. Of lordly elephants, I am Airavata. And among men, I am the monarch. Okay. What is Lord Krishna, Srila Prabhupada is saying about this? Amongst the human beings, the king is the representative of Krishna because Krishna is the maintainer of the universe, maintains the whole universe. And the kings who are appointed on account of their godly qualifications are maintainers of their kingdoms. Kings like Maharaj Yudhishthir, Maharaj Parikshit, and Lord Rama were all highly righteous kings who always thought of the citizens' welfare. In Vedic literature, the king is considered to be the representative of God. In this age, however, with the corruption of the principles of religion, monarchy decayed and is now finally abolished. It is to be understood that in the past, however, people were more happy under righteous kings. So, best form of government is actually monarchy. That's the best form of government. Because this other form of government, you have to constantly thinking of your own seat, whether you will remain after 4 years or 5 years, whatever the term is there in democracy. And if you don't have to worry, then the other problem is they are not righteous, right? They are influenced by all kinds of false philosophies and sense gratification. They are not righteous. That's the problem. Your king, monarchy is good, but the kings also have to be righteous. Right? So what is the solution then in today's world? Solution in today's world is therefore, because you cannot guarantee righteous kings, therefore have democracy, but make people their heart, change their heart so that they elect people with good righteous character. That's the solution. That's the only solution. There is no other solution in today's world because the Vedic culture is completely destroyed. Right? Ayudhanam aham vajram dhenunam ashmi kamadhuk prajanashchashmi kandarpa sharpanam ashmi vashuki. Of weapons, I am the thunderbolt. Among cows, I am Surabhi. Of causes for procreation, I am Kandarva, the god of love. And of serpents, I am Vasuki, right? The thunderbolt, indeed a mighty weapon, represents Krishna's power, right? This is this thunderbolt that was manufactured with the bones of the Dadichi, great devotee, as instructed by Lord Vishnu himself, which is no other than Krishna. And then they used it to, because Indra was not able to defeat Vritasur, because he was in the demon, but he was also a great devotee. Okay, so they had to use Dadichi's bones to make this thunderbolt that could be then used to kill Vritasur. In Krishna Loka, in the spiritual sky, there are cows which can be milked at any time, and they give as much milk as one likes. Of course, such cows do not exist in this material world, but there is mention of them in Krishna. The Lord keeps many such cows which are called Surabhi. So that is what he's saying. I am the Surabhi. It is stated that the Lord is engaged in herding the Surabhi cows. Gandharva is the sex desire for presenting good sons or good children. Therefore, Gandharva is the representative of Krishna. Sometimes sex is engaged only for sense gratification. Such sex does not represent Krishna. But sex for generation of good children is called Gandharva and represents Krishna. Okay? And there is this whole process involved in that. In Bhagavatam, it has been described like the Garbhadhan Sanskar person should follow to make sure, that sex is used to beget good children. Right? And at that time, that represents Lord Krishna. Okay. Anantas chashmi naganam varuno yadashamaham pitranam aryama chashmi yamaha shamya matamaham. Of the many hooded Nagas, I am Ananta, and among the aquatics, I am the demigod Varuna. Of departed ancestors, I am Aryama, and among the dispensers of law, I am Yama, the lord of death. Among the many hooded Naga serpents, Ananta is the greatest, as is the demigod Varuna among the aquatics. They both represent Krishna. There is also a planet of Pitas, ancestors, presided over by Aryama, who represents Krishna. There are many living entities who give punishment to the miscreants, and among them, Yama is the chief. Yama is situated in a planet near this earthly planet. After death, those who are very sinful are taken there, and Yama arranges different kinds of punishments for them. Prahladas-chashmi daityanam kalah kalyatam aham mriganam cha mrigendro aham vainateyascha pakshinam. Among the Daitya demons, I am devoted Prahlad. Among subduers, I am time. Among beasts, I am the lion. And among birds, I am Garuda. So Diti and Aditi are two sisters. The sons of Aditi are called Adityas, right? The demigods. And the sons of Diti are called Daityas. All the Adityas are devotees of the Lord, and all Daityas are atheistic. Okay? Although Prahlad was born in the family of Daityas, he was a great devotee from his childhood. Because of his devotional service and godly nature, he is considered to be a representative of Krishna, right? Because he was close to Krishna. Right? There are many subduing principles, but time wears down all things in the material world, universe or world, and so represents Krishna. Okay, so there are many subduing principles, like you can subdue using force, you can subdue using law. Subduing means to suppress, okay, to finish or suppress, okay, destroy. So there are many principles, but among all this, time is the ultimate, because nothing can ultimately not withstand the effect of time. However great the emperor is, like the Hitler, Stalin, all gone basically in the annals of time. And there have been many cruel people in the past, they were all gone. Okay, time finishes everything, and therefore that time as a subduing principle represents Krishna. Of many animals, the lion is the most powerful and ferocious, and of the million varieties of birds, Garuda, the bearer of Lord Vishnu, is the greatest. Pavana Pavatamashmi Ramashasta Bhritamaham Jasanam Makaraschashmi Srotashamashmi Jahnavi. Of purifiers, I am the wind. Of the wielders of weapons, I am Rama. Of fishes, I am the shark. And of flowing rivers, I am the Ganges. Of all aquatics, shark is one of the biggest and is certainly most dangerous to man. Thus, the shark represents Krishna. Right? And Lord Rama is considered the best wielder of weapon. Sarganam adirantascha madhyam chaivaham arjuna adhyatma vidya vidyanam vada pravadatamaham. Of all creations, I am the beginning and the end and also the middle. O Arjun, of all sciences, I am the spiritual science of the self, and among logicians, I am the conclusive truth. Among the created manifestations, the first is the creation of total material elements. Right? As explained before, the cosmic manifestation is created and conducted by Mahavishnu, which is also Karandaksha Vishnu, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and Shirodakshai Vishnu. And then again it is annihilated by Lord Shiva. So Mahavishnu or Karandaksha Vishnu, he sleeps on the ocean of causal water, and he emits millions and trillions of universes from his pores, from his bidding. Each of those universes, then same Karandaksha Vishnu enters as Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and then sleeps in the Garbha of each universe, okay, the lower hemisphere. And in the upper hemisphere is where the universe, what we see, right? And the same Garbhodakshai Vishnu then enters every atom, everything as Paramatma, which is the Shirodakshai Vishnu, as Shirodakshai Vishnu. Okay. So he creates and then annihilated by Lord Shiva. Brahma is a secondary creator. All these agents of creation, maintenance, and annihilations are incarnations of the material qualities of Supreme Lord, or Guna Avatar, right? Brahma and Shiva. They are actually Guna Avatar. Brahma represents Sattva Gun. He is the controller of Satya Gun. Lord Shiva is the controller of Tamasa Gun, the destructive power. And Lord Vishnu is the controller of Sattvic Gun, right? Which is the responsible for maintaining the universe. All these agents, okay. So therefore, he is the beginning, the middle, and end of all creation. That's why he's saying this, beginning, end, and middle. Okay. For advanced education, there are various kinds of books of knowledge, such as the 4 Vedas. There are 6 supplements, right? The Vedanta Sutra, books of logic, Nyaya Shastra, books of religiosity, Dharma Shastra, and the Purana. So altogether, there are 14 divisions of books of knowledge. Of this, the book which represents Adhyatma Vidya, spiritual knowledge in particular, the Vedanta Sutra, that also represents Krishna. So wherever you talk about essence, splendor, beauty, okay, best, anything best, okay, that is Krishna. Why? And it makes sense because he is present in everywhere, everything, everyone, every abstract concept as super soul. And whenever that concept or that entity is in pure form, that super soul then is able to is expressed completely, unrestrictedly, and it becomes the best. Among logicians, there are different kinds of arguments. Some are supporting one's argument with evidence that also supports the opposite side is Jalpa. Merely trying to defeat one's opponent is called Vidanda, but the actual conclusion is called Pada. This conclusive truth is a representation of Krishna. That is what this is. Vada pravadatam. Right? Of the arguments, the Vada conclusion is not Krishna. Because What's the point of any argument if you don't come to any conclusion? When you come to a conclusion, that conclusion is presented. So conclusion is the best part of an argument, and therefore that is Lord Krishna. Aksharanam akaroshmi dvandva shama shikshaya cha aham eva kshaya kalo dhataham vishvato mukha. Of letters, I am the letter A, and among compound words, I am the dual compound. I am also inexhaustible time, and of creators, I am Brahma. So Akara, the first letter of the Sanskrit alphabet, is the beginning of the Vedic literature. Without Akar, nothing can be sounded. Therefore, it is the beginning of the sound. Right? In Sanskrit, there are also many compound words, of which the dual word, like Rama Krishna, is called Dvandva. Right? So there are many there are 5 types of compound words. One is Dvandva, where both the parts of the Dvandva or compound word have the same form or same importance. Okay, that is why it is called dual compound. There are other compound words where one part is prominent and the other there is one compound word where both the parts are not prominent and it represents a third meaning, right? But Dvandva, where both the parts are prominent, same form, that is the best. Okay, and therefore that represents Krishna. Among all kinds of killers, time is the ultimate because time kills everything. Time is the representative of Krishna because in due course of time, there will be great fire and everything will be annihilated. This whole universe, including Brahma, will get absorbed, right, into the body of Mahavishnu in due course of time. So that is why time is it kills everything. That is what Lord Krishna actually in the next chapter he will say, Kaloshmi, I am Kalashmi, I am the Kal, destroyer of the great worlds. Okay. So time kills everything. Among the living entities, and time actually kills everything, which is the ominous aspect, but time also therefore is said as healer, because time also not only kills good things or destroys good things, it also destroys bad things. In due course of time, the unhappiness also goes away. Unhappiness due to past events goes away due to time. We forget. That's also a good effect of time. Among the living entities who are creators, Brahma, who has 4 heads, is the chief. Therefore, he is a representative of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Right. And another aspect of time, the reason why time destroys everything, as we are discussing before, that when he created this material world, he did not want to be visible because we did not want Lord Krishna to be visible to us. Right? We wanted to stay away from him. And therefore, he created the world as an image of the spiritual world, reflection, but then he was not present. And this time factor, with this time factor, is indirectly giving us a signal that anything you do or you think that your body is yourself, everything will get destroyed in due course of time. Right? But don't get morose. If you want to continue in this world, just like bad things go away, good things also come due to time, and then they also go away. So don't get attached to anything in this world. Okay, that is the message, because the attachment, if you want to make, try to attach yourself to something permanent, something eternal, because it's the nature of the soul to get attached, right? It is the nature. Why we get attached is because it is our nature. It is the nature of the soul to associate and get attached. Because when we are spiritual, when we are in spiritual world, we are attached to Lord Krishna and his activities. So attachment is not bad, but to what you are attaching, that has to be seen. If you're attaching to material things which are not permanent, then that will be a source of misery, because nothing is permanent in this material world. They will go away. So you will suffer. But if you attach yourself to something permanent, something eternal, to Krishna, to Krishna's pastimes, right, then those are eternal. right? So that attachment will remain. It will be source of constant happiness, okay, pleasure. And that is what we read in the beginning of this chapter, right? That is what those sages, the Abhidheya, right? I think it was 8, 9, 10, 11. So 9 and 10, those two verses is where he's saying how do they engage? They're constantly engaged in his service, discuss about him. Why they do that? Because he is permanent. Therefore, those relationships are permanent. They will remain permanent. Okay. So constant source of tushyanti cha ramanti cha. So they are always in bliss as a result. Mrityu sarva haraschaham udbhavascha bhavisyatam kirti srirvakcha narinam smritir medha dhriti shama. I am all devouring death, and I am the generating principle of all that is yet to be. Among women, I am fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience. So this is what we're talking about. So he is present as death, the end, is also present as the beginning, generating principle. Of course, all these good qualities are feminine in nature. That is what Srila Prabhupada is explaining down below, right? The 7 opulences listed, fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfast, patience, are considered feminine. If a person possesses all of them and some of them, he becomes glorious. Okay. Brihatsama tatha samnam Gayatri chandasamaham Mashanam marga sishoham Ritunam kushumakara. Of the hymns in the Samved. Now, before he said that among the Vedas I am Samved. Now, within Samved, he is also describing that best part within Samved, that is him, which is Brihat Sama. And of the poetry, the Gayatri. Of months, I am Magha Sirsha, November, December. And of seasons, I am flower bearing spring. Right? So it has already been explained by the Lord that amongst all the Vedas is the Samved. The Samved is rich with beautiful songs played by various demigods. One of these songs is Brihat Sama, which has an exquisite melody and is sung at midnight. Okay. In Sanskrit, there are definite rules that regulate poetry. Rhyme and meter are not written whimsically as in such modern poetry. Amongst the regulated poetry, the Gayatri Mantra, which is chanted by the duly qualified Brahmanas, is the most prominent. Okay. So that is why in the poetry, it's a well-written poetry, Gayatri Mantra. Okay. Because the Gayatri Mantra is especially meant for God realization, it represents also the Supreme Lord. That is the reason. It's because it is meant for God realization. Gayatri Mantra is very important in Vedic civilization. It is considered to be the sound incarnation of Brahman. Brahma is its initiator and it is passed down from him in disciplic succession. Okay. The month of November, December is considered the best of all months because in India, grains are collected from the fields at this time and people become very happy. Right? The harvesting season. Of course, spring is a season universally liked because it is neither too hot nor too cold and the flowers and trees blossom. The whole nature becomes very beautiful in spring. In spring, there are also many ceremonies commemorating Krishna's pastimes. Gaur Purnima, also happens where we celebrate Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, appearance. Therefore, this is considered to be the most joyful of all seasons, and it is the representative of Supreme Lord Krishna. Dyutam chalayatam ashmi tejas tejasvinamaham jayoshmi vyavashayosmi sattvam shattvavatamaham. I'm also the gambling of cheats, and of the splendid, I'm the splendor. I'm victory, I'm adventure, and I'm the strength of the strong. Right? So, he is gambling of the cheats. So, imagine there is a cheater who considers himself the best cheater, okay, or best gambler. But he can never win with Krishna. Why? Because Krishna represents the gambling itself. Right? That means all the knowledge of gambling that was in the past is present and yet to come. He represents all that. So how can a person who is considered the best cheater ever cheat Krishna? Right? Because he may be best now because he has comprehended all the knowledge of gambling in the past and present, but he may not know what is there to come. Right? So, but Krishna is that knowledge itself, the gambling. Okay. So you cannot win the totality of knowledge, right? And that's what in a particular field, and that's what Krishna is. Anything splendid, I am the splendor. So indirectly is giving an answer to why he described all those things in the past, in the previous verses. All those things are splendid in those specific areas, and that they are splendid because they have that splendor, and that splendor is Krishna, and that is why Krishna is represented by those things or abstract concepts or people or living entities. Okay. Vrishninam Vasudevosmi Pandavanam Dhananjaya Muninam Apiham Vyasa Kavinam Ushana Kavi. Of the descendants of Vrishni I am Vasudev, and of the Pandavas I am Arjuna. Of the sages I am Vyas, and among great thinkers I am Ushana. Ushana, another name of Ushana is Sukracharya, the guru of the demons. Right? Dando damayatamashmi nitirashmi jigitsatam maunam chaivashmi guihanam jnanam jnanavatamaham. Among all means of suppressing lawlessness, I am punishment. And of those who seek victory, I am morality. Of secret things, I am silence. And of the wise, I am the wisdom. Right? So, and what is the best way to suppress lawlessness? Punishment. Because when you punish someone who is lawless, other such lawless people becomes careful. Right? No other incentives work for people who are lawless, because it's their nature. Only thing, the fear of punishment works. Right? It is very important. Right? When you have lawlessness in any country, any place, you have to look at the punishment. Are our punishments effective? If they're effective, lawlessness automatically reduces. It's cruel. Punishment is little bit sounds cruel, but that is unfortunately that's the only thing that works with the lawless people. Right? And among the wise, I am the wisdom. Same thing with the gambling. Right? He represents the total wisdom. Therefore, no one can be wiser than Lord Krishna. Yachapi sarva bhutanam bijam tadaham arjuna na tadasti vinayatsyan maya bhutam characharam. Furthermore, Arjuna, I am the generating seed of all existences. There is no being, moving or non-moving, that can exist without me. Right? So, not only the splendid ones which I described, but anything that you see existing, I am the generating seed. Okay? And not only the generating seed, their existence is possible because of me. Okay, I am present there. As long as a super soul is present in our body, we are alive. Okay. When it leaves, we are dead. Right? So everything that is existing is because of the presence of super soul. It holds together. It holds together. Otherwise, everything disintegrates. The time, the other factor, the time factor of Krishna disintegrates everything, but the super soul factor, aggregates and builds, creates. Nantosti mama divyanam vibhutinam parantapa eshatu deshata prokto vibhuter vistaro maya. O mighty conqueror of enemies, there is no end to my divine manifestations. What I have spoken to you is but a mere indication of my infinite opulences. Okay? That is why cannot count all the opulences, because that's infinite. Mathematically speaking, infinite is something we cannot count. Right? It's not finite. So there is no end to his divine opulences, divine manifestations. but he listed the prominent ones to help Arjuna to absorb himself, okay, even in his day-to-day life. Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam srimad urjitam evava tat tat eva vagachatvam mama tejom shashambhavam. Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations, here is what that pattern, Lord Krishna is talking about. Why all these? Why not others? You will see there's something opulent there, something beautiful there in those entities, whatever Lord Krishna described, opulences, something glorious in those opulences, right? But all that from a spark of my splendor. Okay, if splendor is a totality, then just a spark is responsible for all that. Athava bahunetena kim gyatena tavarjuna vistabhyaham idham krishnam ekam shena sthito jagat. But what need is there, Arjun, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. So, Lord Krishna is indirectly telling Arjuna that even if you cannot identify with these opulences while you are going on with your day-to-day work, whatever you see, try to see me there, because I am everywhere. I am supporting everything. Remember me. That is a way by which you can absorb yourself always. When you remember me in everything you see, that is how you will remember me always, 24/7. Okay. Because even with this detailed knowledge, there may be situations where it doesn't cover any of them. So what to do then? Right? But it is good to listen to all these detailed opulences of Lord Krishna, because it helps us, it helps us appreciate his greatness. And yet and this last statement shows that although he is so great, but he is still everywhere, maintaining everything, which we are incapable of doing, right? So he is not only great, but we also feel very grateful to him, because he's pervading everything, he's supporting this entire universe. So he's great, but yet we should be grateful to him. And in the next chapter is Arjuna then asks about, how are you, and that is what entering this whole universe. And then that's the next chapter, the Vishwaroop chapter, the universal form or the time form. We'll read next. Okay. So we are going to conclude today here. Just let me quickly check if there are any questions anywhere. Okay. So there are no questions today. So we'll close the class here. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jai Srila Prabhupada.